The research, analytics, and design, we pitch it as a yin and yang, that you can't, if you take one out, you just have a comma. So design thinking at Cox. So one example I wanted to share is most people think, oh, design thinking, you're building electronic products, or you're building websites, this, that, and the other. Not at all the case. The first thing we went for was an opportunity that came up with employee onboarding. The company, there was a new group called Organizational Effectiveness within Cox, and they were standing the group up, and the executive director said, I need to create a roadmap. I have no idea where the problems are in the company. Can you help me? I said, absolutely. Design thinking is a perfect opportunity to do that. So we interviewed, because the company was facing a lot of challenges. People were dropping out even before they started. They were dropping out within 6 weeks. They were dropping out within 6 months. The attrition rate was absurd. So there was clearly a problem. Let's figure this out. So we interviewed 70 employees, active employees, ex-employees, ones that had just left, supervisors, managers, tried to understand the opportunities. We did workshops with leaderships in our markets as well as in Atlanta, and we generated journey maps. We had like over 4,000 pieces of data. It was a significant effort, but it allowed the executive director to build a roadmap, a 3-year roadmap, but also a 5-year roadmap, and it really put us on the map from design thinking. So the moral of the story is don't just limit to yourself where you're operating now. Look for those opportunities outside the space. So teaching design thinking. I've had the opportunity to bring design thinking into Cox, and we're full bore. We are teaching that to basically anybody who'll listen. We've set up a class, a workshop. It's a full-day workshop, immersive. We have it in the Cox University. They sign up. It's an in-person workshop. They come in. I teach them the whole process over the course of the day. They work on some examples and spaces. So by the end of the day, they can not only spell design thinking, they actually understand it, and they can go back and practice it. And so we've seen it kind of boomerang, where they not only practice it, but they're aware, so then they pull us in on later engagements. So it's almost like a business development as well as helping the company as a whole. So how did we get started? We actually started with the interns. It's a group you would not normally think, but it's a large group. So it's between 40 and 70 interns that Cox Communications has year over year. And so we train them right from the start. And this year we're actually training the hiring managers of the group so they can have the same conversation. What we found, because the interns are spread across the company, if we train the interns, they come back and they tell the stories about this design thinking, and we should really consider that. We saw some pull from technology and from other groups from that. So, and then it's actually gotten up to the executive level, and we were asked to come in with all the senior executives and do a second day of an innovation workshop using design thinking. We didn't do the whole process, we just did part of it, but that was great exposure. So definitely look for those opportunities. This is just a sample agenda of what we do for our design thinking workshop. The first part of the day, we teach them about design thinking, and then we break into groups. We go through the process again, and then we have them work in individual groups on specific problem spaces. So learning the process, we have a couple handouts that we utilize. We take the gift-giving worksheet or the wallet worksheet from Stanford and from the D School and utilize that as part of our process. We also have developed a design thinking toolkit that they get as part of the class, and it walks them through the process. It has some different examples, and it's a takeaway. It's something they can constantly reference, and it's also a very visible artifact of that. So we work through the process here. We haven't expanded it like IBM. IBM adds a couple other steps and components to it. We kept it very true to there and branded it as kind of for our own brand. This is some examples from that toolkit I showed. So we break it into the different sections. And so, for example, like prototype, we walk through the whole process of what it means to prototype and have examples that we walk through. I want to quickly get to my couple other pages where we talk about the tools. And so these are the breakout groups that we have, the kind of problem spaces they work through. We have them talk about onboarding. A lot of times they're interns. They just went through onboarding. They have a lot to say. Make work fun. The interns are typically millennials, so they have a different perspective than a lot of the people within Cox Communications, and brand loyalty. So these are spaces that are easily accessible. And then finally, we have a video that we put together that we share wherever we can.
Cox Communications University Relations is all about connecting you. Connecting you to other students in pursuit of similar goals and to a host of Cox professionals available to mentor you. But most of all, we connect you to a solid foundation for your professional success. We take pride in providing an innovative learning environment where you can learn from experts in key areas like design thinking. Design thinking is quickly becoming the go-to process in developing extremely effective products, spaces, services, and systems.
Design thinking, I think, should be a way of thinking. And I'm actually glad that Cox is bringing this design thinking process to the interns and co-ops here so that we can use it to solve real-world problems.
I never really thought of design thinking as a process where you visually lay out pretty much like a storyboard of all of your different ideas with your group members. It can be applied to anything and anywhere in all the departments.
Part of the surprise came in really how the activities we did today really increased like my bonding with the people that I was working with. It really gave us a great chance to bond in a matter of a couple of hours in ways that, you know, I haven't bonded necessarily outside of this. The cool thing about design thinking is the methodology and framework that's provided here is so applicable to different projects.
As an intern, as we continue to work on various projects, it allows us to bring this thought into the technology that we're wanting to roll out to our consumers. And so when I go back to my team, I'm excited to sort of take this thought and say, hey, how can we better serve the population that we're choosing to target with our product, and how can we really dive deep into what their needs are, and then how can we provide a better solution for them.
Challenge yourself in the thriving environment at the leading edge of business. Start your journey at Cox Communications and get connected.
Okay, thank you.
So if you want to just hang out up here. So we'll have a Q&A if we have time with all the Lightning Talk speakers. When they're done, we're going to play with the order a little bit now and bring up Rich Goebel, who is a strategic facilitator. And he's got extensive credits in technology, marketing, and media. He's a whiteboard, big paper kind of guy, and a UX facilitator. I met him when I was at a conference, and he just started drawing. When he was sitting next to me, I was like, wow, what are you doing? And he was like visualizing the talk as he was hearing it, which I thought was kind of cool. So everybody who's an IA ends up with a magic marker or some on a piece of paper, or you end up, you know, at the whiteboard with hopefully not a magic marker. And you're drawing and trying to figure out how you do facilitation. So Rich is going to tell us all about it. Please welcome Rich.
Good morning. So, hi. How you doing? I'm not going to teach you anything this morning. What I'm going to do is present a whole bunch of stuff as fast as I can and give you a lot of resources so you can go learn it on your own. Does that sound good? Does it work for everybody? All right, let's do it. So I want to start with a story. Rancher in Texas goes to visit a farmer in Rhode Island, and of course everything in Texas is huge, right? And the Texan has to boast to his friend the farmer and say, you know what? Back at my ranch, I can get in my truck in the morning, I can drive all day, and I will never get to the end of my property line. And the farmer says, you know, I used to have a truck just like that. So the point being, they're having one dialogue, they're not having the same conversation. Show of hands if that's ever happened to you. This is something that the folks at Vital Smarts talk about. It is the pool of shared meaning. When we're having dialogue, when we're working with people, that's what we're trying to get to. Shared ideas, shared concepts, shared hopes and dreams. Have a whole pool of understanding that's common to everybody so you can get the work done. So there's your first resource, Vital Smarts, a book called Crucial Conversations. That's where you can learn all about that stuff. If you're taking pictures, I think that's great. I can also make this available as a PDF when we're done, so if you just feel like listening and watching. Let's talk about the word facilitation. Anybody know what that word means? Yes, I'm going to explain it to you. Facilitators make the process of meeting together easier and more productive. Anybody ever been in a meeting where you're scratching your eyes out and going, why am I here? Okay. It's all about that. It's all about the process. That's what facilitators do. So as a strategic facilitator, my job is to help people think strategically together. So let's look at what that means. So we're having a meeting. We're going to have dialogue. We're going to diverge in our thinking. Then we're going to converge towards a wonderful resolution. That's what's supposed to happen in a good meeting. Well, that's what we think happens even when we think we have a good meeting. But facilitators know that the truth is not quite like that. The convergence happens way too soon because of all the agendas in the room, because of people's personalities, because one person hogs the floor, the other person hides behind coffee. Not enough gets done. So a facilitator's job is to help the divergence really happen until you get into what's called the groan zone. A guy named Sam Kainer came up with that term. Then you get to convergence. Then you have a better resolution. That's what a great meeting is all about. So how do you do that? So there's two focal points in meetings. There's the mechanics, which is preparation, execution, and follow-through. Then there's the dynamics, which is all about exploration, ideation, alignment, the human stuff that goes on. I want to teach you about the mechanics of a meeting. This is big. The very first point is don't have one. Meetings are expensive. 5 people in a meeting for 1 hour, that's 5 man-hour or person hours. That's a lot of money if you're looking at 150, 200 bucks per person. Don't do it if you don't have to do it. But what you can do, come on, is if you're going to have a meeting, make sure you know your objectives, create an agenda, invite the right people, and provide materials in advance. Show of hands for who actually does all of that. Okay. Well, let's keep going because there's 12 steps. This is a 12-step program. Stay engaged, stick to the agenda, keep a record, create action items, review takeaways. So 10 items. How many times do you work with people where you actually do all those things? Zip. Oh, okay. Lastly, create a report. Yeah, I don't want to do that. And hold people accountable. This is the mechanics of a meeting. This is how meetings go really well. This should happen every time people get together to work. So how do you do that? Here's another resource, my favorite resource on having great meetings, because I wrote it. It's called The Illustrated Guide to Great Meetings. There's a ton of information on the web about how to have meetings. The point, though, is to actually do the work. This is a book that'll help you do it. It's a PDF. It's free online. Go to my website. You'll find it, etc. So let's talk about dynamics. This comes from Sam Kainer's book. There's 17 different kinds of dynamics about how you work with people. This is the personal part. You're going to try and paraphrase and draw people out or mirror their behavior. That's what your parents always did, right, when you were kids. Then you have to help people gather ideas, stack and track things. Like, okay, we had 6 things going. I heard that, I heard that, I heard that. This is managing the dialogue. You have to encourage people to speak. You have to find balance in the conversation. You have to make space for people who need it. You need to acknowledge feelings, validate and empathize all the people who are working. Foster silence. Good time to foster silence while I get a drink of water. Linking ideas together, listening for common ground. Listening with a point of view. We're going to come back to that. As IA people, you're not professional facilitators, but like everybody in the world, you're facilitating conversation. You have your own agenda. You have your own point of view. How do you do that and still be a facilitator? It's challenging. Lastly, summarize when you're done. That's the dynamics of working with the people in a meeting. Some great resources for that. Sam Kainer's Facilitator's Guide to Participatory Decision-Making. Okay, keep going because I'm going to run out of time. Tools of the trade. We have instruments. Instruments are things like whiteboards, flip charts, markers, big white paper. Get good materials. It's really important to have things that work. Mental models, you guys know some of these things, right? 2x2s, continuums, lots of things in there.